The weight of Odin's eye. A long ship drifted across black water. No sails, no oars, no crew. At the prow stood a woman wrapped in wolf pelts. One of her eyes was sewn shut. In her hand, she held a severed braid of red hair. They called him the Unbroken. They called him Odin's favorite. They called him a god among men. She stared into the darkness. My name is Astrid Ironblood, and this is the story of how a Viking legend lost everything. Jarnvik was a small village hidden beside a narrow fjord. The people were fishermen and farmers. They were not famous warriors, but they were proud and honest. Astrid was 15 years old. Her older sister, Senia, was known throughout the region as a gifted seeress. Life was difficult, but peaceful. Then, Ragnar Silvertongue arrived. Ragnar was the most celebrated Viking raider in the north. He had fought in countless battles. He had never lost. Songs were written about him while he was still alive. When Ragnar met Senia, he immediately wanted her. He asked for her hand in marriage. Signy refused. She loved a blacksmith named Erikr. Ragnar smiled. He said he understood. Then he sailed away. The village believed the matter was over. 6 weeks later, Ragnar returned. This time, he brought 80 warriors. His message was simple: submit or burn. The village chief tried to negotiate. Ragnar listened patiently. Then he gave an order. Erikr was dragged to the beach. In front of the entire village, Ragnar had him executed. Not because he hated him, not because he feared him, simply to make a point. This is what refusal costs. The next morning, Sinje was forced to marry Ragnar. Astrid watched everything. She never forgot. Neither did her sister. Years passed. Ragnar grew richer. His fame spread farther. People called him the Unbroken, a warrior blessed by Odin himself. But while Ragnar built his legend, Astrid built something else. She became a shield maiden, a fighter, a survivor. For 8 years she trained, for 8 years she watched. For 8 years she waited. Then fate finally offered her an opportunity. The opportunity came from Ragnar's own son, Leif. 17 years old, intelligent, thoughtful, nothing like his father. One night, Leif visited Astrid in secret. He had discovered something hidden inside Ragnar's locked chest. Not treasure, not weapons. Letters, private letters, trade agreements, correspondence with powerful men in distant lands. The documents revealed a secret. Ragnar did not believe in Valhalla. He did not believe in honor. He did not believe in the gods. The man who preached the Viking way of life considered it nothing more than a tool for controlling others. In one letter, he referred to his own warriors as useful animals, men who would die happily believing in fairy tales. Astrid read the letters. For the first time in many years, she smiled. Not because she wanted revenge, because she finally possessed the truth. She shared the discovery with Senia. Together, they created a plan. Not murder, not war, something far more devastating. They would destroy Ragnar's legend. First, Leif quietly spread questions among Ragnar's most trusted followers. Then, Sinje showed the letters to Hakon, the famous skald who had spent years praising Ragnar in song. When Hakon learned the truth, he was heartbroken. Finally, Astrid visited Orm the Navigator, Ragnar's closest friend. She told him what had happened in Jarnvik, how Erikr had died, how Signy had been taken, how Ragnar had lied. Orm listened in silence. The seeds were planted. The reckoning had begun. Soon afterward, Ragnar hosted a grand feast to celebrate another victory. His hall was packed with warriors. The mead flowed freely. Everyone laughed. Everyone celebrated. Then Hakon stood. The room became quiet. Instead of praising Ragnar, he asked questions. What does a warrior value if not honor? What does a leader promise if not truth? What does a man who fears Valhalla truly believe? The hall fell silent. Then Orm stood. I want to know what really happened at Jarnvik. The room became even quieter. And then Astrid entered. She wore wolf pelts. Her face was painted white like the dead. In her hand was Eirikir's red braid. She walked to the center of the hall. This belonged to a man named Eirikir. She placed it on the feast table. The man Ragnar murdered. Whispers spread through the crowd. Ragnar rose from his seat. His face hardened. Before he could speak, another voice interrupted him. Leif, his own son. Father. I read the letters. The hall became completely silent. Ragnar panicked. He called everyone liars. He called everyone traitors. He ordered his warriors to seize Astrid, Seen, Leif, and Hakon. No one moved. Not a single warrior obeyed. For the first time in his life, Ragnar stood alone. Then he did what he had always done. He reached for his sword. With a roar, he charged Astrid. The duel lasted less than a minute. Astrid moved with calm precision. Years of training guided every motion. She shattered Ragnar's sword arm, disarmed him, forced him to the floor. Her knife rested against his throat. The entire hall expected her to kill him. Instead, Astrid stepped back. I'm not going to kill you. Ragnar stared at her in confusion. She looked down at him. Death is easy for a man like you. You've built your entire life around glorious deaths. She lowered her blade. I'm giving you something worse. The truth. Under Norse law, a leader who betrayed his oaths could be stripped of everything. His titles, his honors, his reputation, his legacy. That night Ragnar was formally cast out. His name was erased. No songs would be written about him. No runestones would remember him. No warrior would stand beside him again. He would live, but he would live forgotten. For a man who cared more about his legend than his soul, it was a punishment worse than death. As Ragnar was led away, Hakon spoke softly. Odin gave up an eye for wisdom, but wisdom is not always a gift. Later, Leif sat beside Astrid. Do you feel better now? He asked. Astrid thought for a long moment. No. Eirikir is still dead. My father is still dead. My sister lost years she can never recover. She watched Ragnar disappear into the darkness. But the account is settled. That is not happiness. It is something older. The long ship drifted once more across the Black Sea. Astrid stood alone at the prow. The Norse did not call it karma. They called it word, fate, the thing woven. She looked toward the horizon. Every wrong, every lie, every betrayal, it never disappears. It waits. The fog swallowed the ship, and Astrid's final words vanished into the darkness. Nothing goes unpaid.